Okay, so that was the video. I hope that you were able to see it and hear everyone beside Peter. Great. So there you had the possibility to have a look into how it looks and how it works when we are running tests. Great. So let's jump to the next one. So let's continue. I just want to remind you that if you have any questions, please feel free to add them into the Q&A chat. Maybe we can also turn on the microphones afterwards, that you can ask questions directly after this. But okay, process of accessing the lab. There are actually some steps you need to do to make this be a good experience. And one important thing is the alignment meeting. So when you would like to come and test, we always set up a startup meeting, an alignment meeting. And the reason is that we need to have a discussion on what you would like to test, what capabilities your device have, and what we can offer, so that we can meet your expectations, so that you don't assume that this and that could be tested, but it turns out it could not be tested. So to have the right expectations from both sides, we always have an alignment meeting. And it's also there during those discussions, you are going to be able to estimate how long time will this take. So how much testing will be done? Is it 1 day of testing? Is it several days of testing? So that is done during that meeting. Sometimes we do a device pre-check and pre-test. Most of the time is when devices are sent to us. We would like to know more information about the device, so it's not harmful and stuff like that. But also, once again, that the device are prepared to be so that it's possible to test. Sometimes you need to add, for example, special connections to the device to pick out the logs and stuff like that. Then we define the test cases. We are writing the test specifications. We have some predefined that we can reuse, but quite often there are new ones, that the customer unique ones. So we are listing all test cases that we would like to run. Then we do a sign-off. This is not like a formal sign-off. It's more like, once again, to have the right expectations. It's quite easy, and we have had scenarios where customers assuming things, that it's possible to do this and that, and it turned out not to be the case. Therefore, we would like to have, okay, this is the scope, and we agree on that. Of course, we are trying to be as flexible as possible and do as much as possible when we are in the lab. Then the fun part starts. You are actually in the lab. So this is you as a customer, bring your device, you are in the lab together with our test manager. Quite often it's Robert, and you run the different scenarios and recreate test cases. And the last part is the test report. Sometimes during the test execution, it turns out that you have some bugs, you find things that need to be corrected. Then maybe you need to reschedule and have a new session later on. But yeah. But in the end, we are creating a test report so that you have all the results, all the logs that have been created during the testing. So this is, yeah, it's a bit of a process to have this, and we need to have a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA. There are some sensitive parts and things like that. So before we start this process, we always have an NDA. Yes, I would say that's about it. So let's try to wrap this up. summarize this. You can save a lot of time and money by doing proper testing before you ship out your devices, before you deploy them. So it's really crucial to do testing. And our test lab is quite unique. This concept that you have multiple operators at the same spot is really great. Especially car manufacturer, for example, have come to us, and they're really emphasizing this concept that they can do testing for both Sweden, Norway, and Denmark and Finland in one and the same spot. That can save a lot of time and money. Yeah, we have a lot of attention and great feedback. So we are almost a bit overwhelmed. We have had a lot of customers already. So sometimes we are quite fully booked. And also we are continuously wanting to have feedback from customers, how we can improve and how we can do more testing, more scenarios. So we have some plans to do even more things in the lab in the future. And yeah, if you want to have the possibility to come and test, I recommend you to go into our webpage, the Telenor IoT webpage. We have a page for the test lab, and you can press this bottom here, and then you can fill in an order, or you can contact any salespersons at our side here. We are prioritizing, if we have a queue, we are prioritizing our existing customers, of course, but we are trying to manage external ones as well. I would say that's about it. So thank you for my time, and hopefully we can have some questions.
Should I turn on the microphone for everyone so people can speak out and ask questions?
Yes, please.
I hope that the video worked out the second time.
I think it also worked for Peter, so that was good. It just had a headset issue.
Okay.
Great, but I turn on the visibility for people to ask the questions if there are any. There's as well camera if they would like to. If you would like to turn on.
Yeah, I have a question. Just to open my camera again, because I was interesting during the presentation in the movie. It was told that you are doing robustness tests, and I'm not familiar with the software and so on, but I can see in many cases where the software are not able to handle the variation in the hardware. Do you maybe that is part of the certification? I don't know what level, if we are talking about certification on component or on complete functional modules. But I would like to know if you can say some words how you're handling it.
I didn't really understand fully out the question. Can you repeat that? And Robert, please help me out as well if you're listening. So so you're talking about the differences in the devices, software versus hardware, or?
Yeah, but for being more precise, it's depend. When are you doing the certification? That was before you're receiving the modules or the component, but I'm working in other areas like automotive and turbines and that kind, and sometimes I see that the software are not able to handle the variation in the hardware.
Yeah.
Any comment for that?
Yeah. So it's not actually uncommon. particularly coming out of the 2020, 2021 chip crisis, right? Supply chains were all massively impacted, and we were swapping out components. We were swapping out microcontrollers or CPUs. We're moving into RISC-V and what have you in different architectures. We're moving into cost reduction in modules, which means that we're moving into different vendors and different supply chains. All of these things are impacting. And there is a tendency to migrate old code into new devices, and you have a large regression test issue with that because you have what looks like a similar control plane from the application layer down to the modules or down to the network. And then you do find corner cases where it doesn't handle failovers or it doesn't handle power saving modes and other niche issues. We have seen that a couple of times. It's good for me because it keeps me in a job. But no, the reality is that's why we talk about repeated testing. We talk about regression testing a lot, and where the ability to automate testing comes into play really heavily because we can sit that device. So I have a customer device that sits in the lab permanently. So they've visited one day, they've left their device behind. We give them a remote access through a secure gateway. And because the cage is continuously changing network configurations, that device is continually being stress tested against unexpected network changes. It doesn't get a heads up that the Telenor suite's disappeared and it's suddenly in Denmark. It's not an orderly handover. And they will log in and when it fails, and then they will find issues. And they've fixed a number of those issues. So that's why we sort of say, well, if you're here for a day, leave the device behind and then do remote testing in the future when you need to. So book the lab for a 4-hour session, ask me for a configuration and we'll give it to you because you will find issues that way. And that we can do that. And we have done that through the SIM interface or the power interfaces. We will glitch the power lines. We will put you into low current situations and high power draw because it's a low signal quality or any of these various situations that puts your device into a poor situation that you might not expect, and you can catch it before you deploy to production or into the actual real world.
I see that.
Okay. So
was it also?
I just have a comment to Peter and also to you. I mean, what I understand, Jonas, Robert, you're mainly doing testing, and I mean, if it's about real certification, you probably need to reach out to Force Technology, and I'm sure you have some colleagues that can help you.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I have a good cooperation together with Force also because I have participated close to 20 years in the SPM6, which is now part of Susanne Otto's area. So, and I think also we have met once in Hørsholm once, if I remember correct.
Yeah, true. So yeah, but it's good that you already have established a collaboration with the Force Technology. So I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, also because Susanne and we are teaching at Aalborg University from time to time.
Okay.
So, yes.
But that point you make is really important. And if you go back to the slide where it says that we're not an RF lab, we don't replace one. An RF lab doesn't replace what we do, and we don't replace what an RF lab does. We complement each other. So we're not going to be able to tune your antenna. I make no guarantees about multipathing or reflections or anything else inside the cage. So we rely on the fact that you've done the RF tuning and the emissions testing and the certifications that you're a pre-certified module. And that's why we're not doing certification. That's why we're verifying how your device behaves on the network.
Yeah, but when I'm listening to what you're doing, then you can see my model behind you, and I think you are operating inside the dark blue area. And sometimes I would like to have people finding the limitation for their product. And that is the rate distribution far outside. And if we have a good margin, then probably will work also during a certain lifetime with that degradation you will see in that lifetime. So, yeah. But thank you for your explanation. I think we have a common view on this part.
Great. Anyone else? Any other questions? Crystal clear.
I mean, please raise your hand and then ask a question. I mean, we actually got this unique opportunity to ask him. So, Julian, please.
You're muted.
Julian.
Hi, I'm Julian, Business Development Manager from Tree. Thank you for a really interesting session here. Could you maybe speak more about which kind of devices that you're testing, and maybe also which kind of possible outturns does it get for the customer? Like, what is the key points that they look into after that test?
So I'll take that in two parts. I personally, I don't really care what the device is that comes through. That's on the customer side. However, we maintain relationships with a lot of vendors. And the reason for that is because once you bring the connectivity provider, and that's us, along with the module vendor and the customer into the same room, we generally find we solve problems very quickly. Without that relationship, what we find is that hardware vendors will say, well, my device worked when it left the factory, we did QC. We as the connectivity provider will say, well, our SIM works, we've got 20 million around the world and they work fine. The networks are up, it's not our fault. The software developer says, well, everything works fine on my side and we do this. We do Spider-Man 3 ways, right? And generally what we find is that the problem is not on one person. It's a combination of all three factors that come into play somewhere. A configuration issue or a misunderstanding or what have you. And no matter where the fault generally lies as a root cause, the module is always in the best place to tell you what it sees and what it thinks is wrong. And so we depend heavily on having relationships with module vendors. So we have NDAs in place with the major manufacturers. We have, and once you come to the lab, we will probably have an NDA with your hardware vendors if you want to bring them as well, and then we can share information freely. And that's a really good way to do things. It ensures efficiency of testing. So I hope that answers the first part of the question. So from my perspective, I maintain as many test devices as I possibly can. I will scour the web every day looking for new development kits and new development modules to put onto the test bench because they all operate differently. They all have different pros and cons and different little bugs. Even when you have modules that are all based on, for example, the same Qualcomm chipset, they all behave differently once you integrate them into a higher level module from a Quectel, from a Telet, from a U-Blox, from a Simcom. Sorry, the second question was?
The outcome.
It's more like, what is the unique selling proposition of putting the devices into your test lab? The outcome of after the test, what can they like look into? What is the
right? Yeah. So a really common test case that we have that we've done recently is we had we took a car, we drove it across the border from Norway to Sweden, and we logged what signal we saw. We then bring that back into the lab and we replay that because we had vehicles in production, not all, there was 20%, that were failing when they were crossing the border to do a network handover. They weren't finding the new operator in an efficient manner. And so that is a typical test case. That ends up being a module configuration issue coupled with a SIM optimization issue, right? So that's one of those ones where we have both. We have next generation eCall and eCall testing, right? So vehicles that have to automatically make 112 calls and transmit data. So you need to make sure that your in-car sensors are triggering the right call flows through the system, and that's a multi-layer software issue. These are very common issues. EUICC, so profile swaps, over-the-air profile swaps of SIMs. Just because modems advertise that they are capable of doing it doesn't mean the device, once you integrate it, is. So we often see devices fail in field, and tracing why they're failing to do profile swaps is, again, another very common one. So it's a lot of really use case specific integration testing that we end up doing most of the time for the customer side of things. Oftentimes it's also When a device has failed in field, they will raise a ticket with our service desk, and then they will send the device to us to actually debug and work out why it's failing. So I had that one just yesterday, actually. So we have devices that aren't registering fast enough. So we're debugging that at the moment. They're the really common ones. We've had some really interesting niche corner case stuff, but unfortunately I can't go into the details of that. But it's a lot of integration testing.
I have a question more if it makes sense. Otherwise, I'll also like to make room for the other participants to reach out and ask questions. But
Sure.
Otherwise, I have one. Do you also like work with other networks than Telenor? So if you go to a country that Telenor doesn't provide, then you have maybe other vendors that you use. We do that in Tree, but it's just, can you also test these kind of networks, or if you use a Tree network or another vendor?
No, we have our Telenor operators, and as is mentioned, it's real base stations, and our competitors are not normally willing to hand over their base stations to us. So we have some scenarios where we have partners with other networks. We are looking into how to maybe enable that in the future. But right now it is the four Telenor Nordic networks that we are providing here.
Cool. It's just because we have different kind of vendors in almost every country. So it's just to understand, like, what do you do if you do the same? Because then there's some issues, of course, of testing in this kind of way that you do. But if it's only Telenor, then it's great. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
We can extend on that somewhat, though, that we do have our internal global wholesale partner where we are able to look into partner networks and look at signaling in other countries for devices. So even if we can't route those networks into the lab, we can still work through the signaling and then attempt to replicate the scenario.
Exactly.
Cool. Sounds great. But also, I will have you in mind if we have some of our we have definitely also some Telenor networks that we work with within IoT. So maybe it could make sense to put in some customers at your division as well.
Great. Perfect. Christian. It seems like we ended the questions.
Okay, but then I will take over then. And once again, thank you very much for a very good introduction to your lab facilities, because I think it's really fascinating that you have this possibility to test that the device is actually working in the network. And I mean, that's just, coming from the IoT world, I mean, it's just so crucial. I mean, if you cannot connect the device, then you can't get any data, then you can't make any of the fun use cases that we're all dreaming about. So once again, thank you very much. I just want to share a few more slides before we end today's session, and this is actually about our initiative called the Danish 5G Innovation Hub Testbed, and it's actually an invitation to all of you. So I mean, if you are looking into 5G and you think that could nice to better understand the technology or better understand the business model, or maybe you have some issues about regulation, I mean, please reach out, because we are here to sort of say, to mature that area, to see the 5G be applied in different industries, and not only for the smartphones that were, not for smartphones. I just took this slide just as a repetition to follow up what Jonas just said, and I mean, again, I really look forward to the coming use cases on IoT. I mean, here we are seeing use cases with drones and the robots, and this is just so that IoT is not only just collecting data, but actually also to be able to do something. And then, I mean, with the newer mobile technologies like 5G, we have actually the capability to control our devices. Like here, the robot actually are currently looking along a fence in an airport here in Denmark, and they have the the length of the fence is about 8 kilometers. So here we apply the robot instead of having a person sitting in a car doing the inspection. Or we also demonstrated that the 5G network can be applied for drones flying beyond visual line of sight. That could be for transporting blood samples between a doctor and a hospital, or it could be to do some inspection of the power lines, or the railroads, of the roads, or whatever it could be. So it's about that now the technology actually allows it to use IoT, I would say more intelligent, because our IoT devices can suddenly perform a task on a remote, so to say. Not only getting data, but also using data to perform a task like inspecting the power lines. And again, I mean, we are a number of partners already. And I mean, if you would like to join, please reach out to me, because we are here to help the ecosystem maturing and see where does it actually make sense to apply the 5G based on Release 16. This means the standalone. And we are here we will help with knowledge sharing, and we do a lot of training. I mean, as I mentioned in one of my first slides, we are having these master classes where we go into the deep technical part of the technology, so you get a better understanding of what 5G is and what it can be used for. Then it's of course also about, can we do a mapping between the real needs, so to say, I mean, the burning platform, because we have technology can bring a lot of things, but it also have to be useful, so it has to solve a problem, and therefore we spend some time on mapping so we're looking into if the need, how can we solve the IoT, and how can then the technology be used to provide the necessary connectivity. And it's all about collaboration. It's all about identifying use cases, solving some regulatory boundaries. I'll come back to that a little bit later, about interconnection, and also giving you a chance to speak to a lot of key stakeholders within the 5G ecosystem. And when I talk about 5G, it's not so much that you get a higher bandwidth or higher data rate on your mobile phone, or you can apply the mobile or your 5G network for fixed wireless access, but actually this ability to get a wireless connection of a high quality service. And that's the link that actually allows us to run these use cases. And as you can see from this slide, you can see that going from the left to the right, we had the technology develops. We started back in the old 2G days with mainly GSM and M2M, or you could say GSM voice call and some M2M, some SMSs, maybe also some lower data rate, but everything was based on the best effort. And also when we talk about the 2G, 3G, we talk about some regional technologies where we could not use our phone everywhere in the world. But the release of 4G and also 5G, we have suddenly a global technology, and that means that if we can develop products that support 5G in Denmark, we can most likely also use the same device, the same solution in other countries as well, and then we can actually have the ability to address a global market. And again, here I think it's great that we have, for instance, Telenor, they have a test facility that actually can show that the device actually works before we ship it somewhere else. You probably know the 5G use cases already, but I just want to illustrate this 5G triangle. I mean, on the top one, we have the typical one where we talk about the enhanced mobile broadband services, where it's all about sending data on a higher speed, opening up for high resolution screens, better voice quality, augmented reality. But here in our initiative, we are focusing on the lower right part. This is the ultra reliable low latency communication, where we see services that are focusing on the mobile robots or the drones, or the mobile robots and drones, but also the industrial safety, and also different kind of closed loop control of equipment being connected. And as we see the technology evolves, we see that the performance and the capability actually increases. And here I have just borrowed a slide from Siemens, showing how do we see an evolution on the data rate, on the latency, on support for industrial IoT, and so on and so on. And as you can see that the capability improves, but when we talk about realizing different use cases, it's also about knowing when is technology good enough to solve a specific need. So we're not just only waiting on getting the benefit of the digitalization, but also seeing, okay, can we do something? Can we change our way of thinking so we can actually enable the solution already based on today's technology? And we are here, so just to repeat myself, we are looking into the two needs, I mean, the technical abilities. We here to look into the regulatory boundaries, what are the challenges. As mentioned before, we have organized this event about spectrum for the private networks between 3.8 and 4.2. And here, because we have so many partners, we've actually been invited to give our input on what should the framing be of the boundaries be for the coming spectrum at 3.8 to 4.2. And then we also pushing on other areas, for instance, like the drones flying beyond visual line of sight. And last but not least, we are talking about the business constraints. We have to make sure that whatever we do actually makes sense. So it's not only about showing the technology what it can do, but also trying to understand how should the business model look like when we offer these capabilities to new services. So that's also some of the focus areas in our setup, that whenever we see a use case, we start to have a dialogue on what should the service actually cost. Yeah, and again, just to complete my presentation, I just want to again highlight that we are having this tour to Barcelona in November. It's not about 5G, but actually focusing on IoT solution for the smart city. And again, if you're interested to join, please reach out, and we will tell you more about what will happen. And yeah, not that. Irina, are you still with us? And do you want to say a few more words about this Smart City Expo?
Yes, I'm still with you. Thank you. Yes, it's going to be a delegation that organized by Nordic IoT Center, Wibble Denmark, Blocks Hub. It's kind of the same delegations that we had last year, and there are going to be a lot of communities presented there. We are going to make visits to German stand, Nordic and Baltic stand, and we are organizing a lot of networking, matchmaking activities that you can participate. So if you have questions, just reach out to me.
Yeah, and I can only recommend you to join, because I actually joined last year, and it was really good eye-opener for me. I mean, coming from the telecom area and where we focus on technology, it was nice to see what can we actually apply this technology for. I mean, how can and get a lot of inspiration from different countries around the world. So suddenly it starts to make sense on why do we actually have a technology like 5G that have these capabilities of offering high quality of service. That's because we need to look into building different use cases. I mean, we have a lack of people, so we need robots to do some tasks for us. The robots, they need to have a reliable connectivity. We are talking about digital twins. The digital twins, in order for them to work, we need to be able to gather data from different sources. We need to, due to work on the data and create some useful input that actually, again, can be sent back to the IoT device where it can do a task for us. So it's really, really a lot of great inspiration on what are we using the technology for. So I really encourage you to join. And I mean, if you have anyone in your network that this could be relevant for, please share the good news that we're having this tour in November, and I look forward to meet them all. Any more questions, comments, feedback on this session? I mean, it's you say it's like a new setup from our side. I mean, we are really happy that Telenor, they want to give us some insight of what they're doing in the IoT lab. So thank you for that. It's an online session, which is also different from what we normally do. We do normally a physical event. So please let me know what you think. I mean, maybe we could take around tour around the table. Julian, will you start?
Sure. Can you just it's just whatever's going on in the organization? What do you think?
But now you've been invited to this virtual tour to Telenor. I mean, normally when we have these kind of events, actually physical, so we say you should come to Aarhus or to Hørsholm, and But here, by using the online media instead, we are trying to reach out to people who are not really normally coming to Aarhus and Hørsholm. Therefore, I'm very interested to hear about your feedback about, did you like the setup, do you like the content, and so on?
Yeah, sure. And yeah, it was really good. Thank you, guys from Telenor, for doing this. I think it's really interesting, even though it's maybe even too technical for me to understand all of it. So maybe that can also be a barrier. But I also think that it's interesting to learn something new. So I'm happy to be part of your online session. If I should give some feedback about how you could maybe get more people on board, Christian, then maybe send an updated email out to like an hour before or something like that. So people, they don't forget that I have added this event, because some people just forget.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. Thank you
Yeah.
for that feedback, Julian. I mean, we were actually supposed to be 25, so that's the reason why I kept saying we would start in a few minutes later and a few minutes later. And but you're fully right. I mean, that's definitely something we need to do for the next time. And no one else has camera on, but I still want to reach out to, let's start with Peter, if he has some feedback.
Yeah, I think it was even that the topic is more or less outside my normal working area, but listening to the philosophy, the test, how you are testing your functionalities in Karlskrona is really interesting. So I find it was a good way of presentation, how the Telenor is working, and you will not even have a better possibility if you are standing face to face, unless it was happening in Karlskrona. So I think it was really great. It's a good opportunity, and hopefully there will be further interesting topic in the future. I will look into that because I'm on the inviting list for what happened in Voss.
Thank you very much for your kind feedback. Vivian, sorry for pointing at you, but I hope you will say a few words before we, just to get your feedback. Then I'll try the next one on the line. Sven, will you say a few words?
Oh, I just have to switch on my microphone. Well, I'll just say thank you for this this virtual tour. It's quite interesting what you have set up in Karlskrona, and as you clearly pointed out that this is not a kind of, say, in the old fashion way, type approval. It's more a functional test and all these kind of things. So that's quite impressive. Thanks for the presentation anyway.
You're welcome.
So, Nikos, you're the last one in line. Will you say a few words?
Yes, hi Christian, hi everybody. I think I liked a lot the way it was done today, the event. That actually gave me also the opportunity to join, because I'm not even in Denmark right now, so otherwise I wouldn't have been able to participate. And as also Peter said before, I think the only thing that would maybe be more useful than this would be maybe to visit the lab itself. So otherwise I think it's a great format.
Thank you.
Perfect.
So thank you very much. Thank you all for attending, and I wish you a very nice day, and I hope to see you soon again.
Thank you.